Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? I'm not online. Sorry. Hello, everybody. It's my real pleasure to welcome you to this ACOM 2020 online session number 3. And this session will be about the future of mobility. Disruptive technologies create new realities. But before starting, we will hear some words of greetings from Joris Marel, the Vice President of ACOM. Joris, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Manfred. Hello to everybody. Good morning. I am Joris Marel. Actually, I'm not the Vice President of EPOM. I'm just its treasurer. Sorry, but that will fine for me. Just few words for introducing this webinar. I work in a French technical agency called CEREMA on every mobility demand management policies. And I am very glad to welcome you all on behalf of EPOM, the European Platform on Mobility Management. Before getting to the heart of the matter, let me just recall a few words about this webinar's building and proceedings. As you all know, the ECOM 2020 conference had to be delayed and planned next year in Portugal due to COVID-19 pandemic. Instead, EPOM and the municipality of Cascais, our partner for this conference, decided to organize 7 online debates, including the present one, on the theme of the future of mobility with additional aspects in the light of COVID-19 context. These debates will also help us to define content and format for the next ECOM 2021 conference. And therefore, during the short presentations made by our speakers, and even after them, feel free all to ask every question you want to them by using the interactive tool on the display. Your questions will then be addressed to improve and animate the interactive debate in the second part of this webinar after the speakers' presentations. Well, that's enough speaking for me, and I will let you now in the company of Manfred, Mr. Manfred Neun. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Joris. And thanks for the perspectives given for EPOM 2020 and EPOM 2021. And it will be about the future of mobility. It's a great perspective. We absolutely are longing for to bring in our contributions. It's necessary in particular having in mind the European New Green Deal. But talking about disruptive technologies and how they are creating new realities, we must be aware of that there is a fundamental problem when we are talking about sustainable development. The mere reduction of unsustainable technologies does not automatically lead to sustainability. Rebound effects often diminish the effects of technological innovations, and even substitution can lead to unintended and unsustainable side effects. Rather than by focusing on isolated problems, sustainability must be understood and also built from a systemic perspective. So this is the, let's say, bigger frame of our discussions. And as a basis of our discussions right now, we will hear three presentations of our speakers. Our speakers will be sharp in time, each of you about 10 minutes. And then we are looking forward to have a great debate about. So the first speaker represents a team of 7, and you come from the host region of Lisbon and Cascais, Caterina. It's my pleasure to welcome you, and Caterina, it's your floor.
Okay, good morning to everyone. It's good to be here. It would be better to be in Cascais. I've been in IPOM for many years, so I'm proud that ICOM finally is in Portugal, although not in presence. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we are doing, what we've done, what we are doing in the metropolitan area of Lisbon. The metropolitan area of Lisbon is a transport authority. We have a different organization in Portugal. So we are a different transport authority since 2015. And since, from the moment we started to be a transport authority, we have designed some goals that we wanted to reach on our work. And our goals were mainly to have a better, a more sustainable mobility, to increase and make a better public transport for everyone, because we think that public transport is the core of sustainable mobility in metropolitan areas. That's what we think. And we've made a series of studies, like a mobility inquiry and a lot of studies. And one of the things that we did to go on and we think that it was a problem was the system. I'm going to share just 3 slides, so it's easier for us to understand. Okay, I'm sharing the slides, I think. Okay, can you see it? Oh. Yes, no. Okay, so I'll just speak without the slides, because I think I'm not being able to put them. Okay, that's it. So, okay, so we had a fare system that just included a part of the metropolitan area, and we thought that that was our goal, to have a better system that was not compact, that included the whole region of Lisbon. As I said, we did a mobility inquiry. From the mobility inquiry, we concluded that most of the travel in the region of Lisbon is made by car. As you can see, it's about 55%, is this dark brown, dark red here. So we are very dependent on cars in the metropolitan area, and we didn't have a single fare system. We also had some problems during the crisis from 2010, around that, because fares increased and people got out of public. So we had a very big loss in public transport users, about 25%, and we had to do something about it. So what did we decide to do? This was last year, in April 2019, so we created a new fare system. We call it Navegante. Navegante is a word like traveling in Portuguese. We created this fare system last year in April. The new fare system includes the whole region, the whole metropolitan area, all cities, all operators, all modes, so train, bus, ferry, all are included in the fare system. The fare system has 2 fares. It's for the whole region, it's 40 euros, the whole region, and inside each city it's 30 euros. And then we also have some special fares for children that don't pay. Also for older people, that was a big surprise, because older people really got to public transport. It is half of the price. And we also have something, it was later, we did it by stages. So later we have a family title, which is also very interesting, because if you are a family and you live in the metropolitan area of Lisbon, you can buy a title by the double of the price. So it's quite interesting. We had quite an increase in sales. This is the map from April 2019 to March 2020. We had about more 20% in sales of tickets and monthly passes. People bought this new title. The new title for the whole metropolitan area is this dark green, so it was quite interesting. People just got in, and it was a very big increase in the use of public transport. And you can see here, this is the use of public transport, and it has also increased about, it depends on the month, but it's 20%. Then we have the last month, and the last month is March. And March we have the pandemic, so from the 16th of March there are no people started to enter by the back door, so you can see a very big decrease in the validations. This is from the ticketing system, the validations from the ticketing system. And it all changed. But before it changed, we had a very big increase in the passengers, in the public transport passengers. It's something very, very good. People started to do more, not only the daily home or work journeys in public transport, but also the other journeys in public transport, when sometimes they use that for shopping, for going out with their family. They started to use also public transport. And at the moment, well, everything has changed in the world. We are now with about 30 to 40% of the passengers. In April it was even less. What are we doing now? We are having a lot of measures on the safety of people who use public transport, and we also did something. Just to explain, this fare system was a governmental program that was supported by the Environmental Fund, and we had money from the government and also from the city hall. So this money joined, and that was the way that we paid to the transport operators for this decrease in the fares. We had a very big decrease in fares, because fares were very high in Portugal. We had fares like 150 euros to come to work to Lisbon, so people started to pay 40 euros. This new governmental program made the metropolitan area and also all the country. This program was for the whole country to support to have this new fare system. And now with the pandemic, the government and the metropolitan area, what we did was to this money from this that was to decrease the fares. Okay, this money was we put this money to support the supply of public transport, because what happens is, for example, in April we had 10% of the sales, so it was not possible to have public transport in the streets. So to maintain some level of public transport, we put the money back to the operators, so we could have some public transport in the cities, in the metropolitan areas. That was one of our measures in this new system, that we don't know what is going to happen, but and I'm finishing now. The conclusion for us, we are all still adapting ourselves with this new reality, is that without this public policy, or without this part that is the governmental support program, we will not be able first to have this new fare system more simplified for the 18 operators from the metropolitan areas, for all the regions, to make people go out and use public transport. And now in the pandemic, if we did not have this program and the metropolitan area and the government working with operators, it will not be possible to have most of the offering, the supply of public transport in the streets. So public policies are fundamental. They were meant to maintain the system working, and we also need our conclusion from this, that we also need integrated system, for example, with bike, cycling, walking, because people are a little afraid of going back to public transport. We are also working on that, on the information system. This presentation is only about the first. And so we think that these modes, simplified and integrated fares, are the way to get passengers, to get back people with more sustainable modes, and we can all gain from this loss and this moment that we are living. And for me, that's all. Manfred.
Okay. Thank you very much, Katharina. Thanks a lot for your presentation, and you have been sharp in time. Thanks a lot for this as well. So please step out, sharing the screen, right? And it's my pleasure to announce now the second presentation by Marek Ranalla from Turku. And Marek, your title is about the Turku Smart Mobility Revolution, new reality with mobile big data. The floor is yours, Marek.
Thank you, Manfred. It's actually about the town of Tartu, but it's just a small detail. As you introduced, I'm Marek Ranalla from a company Positium, and we are providing analytics and statistics from mobile positioning data. The Tartu, the town or the city, small city by definition actually, has 100,000 inhabitants. So what kind of disruption happened in Tartu last year? And what is the new reality I was talking about? Imagine if you are standing in the center of a small cozy town. It's a green town, very nice one. And you notice two things around you. One thing is that at any moment during the day, you can see some 2 or 3 buses moving around you, full of people. And the second thing is that in any direction you look, you can see rental bicycles, 2 or 3 in any direction. For some of you, maybe this is normality, nothing special, you don't understand me. For Tartu, for people in Tartu, this is revolution, because the previous bus network that was in Tartu consisted of 29 lines. The share of public transport was in steady decline. It's something between 20 and 25 at the moment. And last year, something happened. In June, the bicycle share, 2/3 of them are electric bicycles, 1/3 normal ones. It was introduced in June, and the new public transport system was introduced in July. Instead of 29 lines, the public transport system has now 14 lines only. The budget is more or less the same. The annual mileage is more or less the same, but what has changed is frequency. It's up to 10 minutes. That's why there is a new reality. And what is the impact of all this? The ridership has increased. It has actually a steady increase between 5 to 10% every month compared to previous year. And ticket sales went also up from 10 to 20% in ticket and month period card sales. The two systems are integrated. So if you have a public transport card, you can rent bicycles for free. It has made estimating the impact a bit complicated, because during the first half year the bicycle system was introduced, people made 700,000 trips and 2 million kilometers. So definitely some people skipped public transport and took bicycles. So what's the technology behind these two changes that really have dramatic effect in Tartu? It's mobile positioning data that is revealing the actual home and work locations. and secondary locations wherever people go, plus mobility patterns. In case of these designs, network design and rental system design, one network operator data was used. It's over 40% of population, so the sample size is quite considerable. The data is anonymous and aggregated, so no privacy concerns. So focusing on actual mobility patterns of population, whatever the actual travel mode is, it makes it possible to design better solutions, however complex or simple they are. So it gives a chance to design systems that really suit people, and then people will follow. So what is so special about using big data to redesign bus network? It really doesn't seem to be a very big deal. So you should maybe think again about what happened in the last maybe 3 months. If you had, for example, a registry with person's home and work address, how much value could it provide during this pandemic? You knew that people were living somewhere and working somewhere, but how many of them were actually commuting? Or ticketing. In case of Tartu, the ticketing doesn't give you very much useful data either. So in case of mobile data, you can get continuous flow of information about how people are actually moving. And you can have it even daily if necessary with no extra costs. With this pandemic impact, you could see that the impact and also the decision impacts that the government made, they were quite immediate and dramatic. The impacts of, how to say, poorly working old mobility, they are not so dramatic and immediate, but I'm sure all of you know that the impacts on public health and the quality of life are even larger in terms of air quality, in terms of general health because of sedentary lifestyle, all kinds of impacts. They are in fact larger. So why not to use better data to design better solutions for sustainable mobility? So I hope this is one thing that this pandemic has changed or taught us, in case we want to learn something from it, that knowing population mobility has actually value, and supporting decision making by data also has considerably larger value than before, because all wrong decisions made all around the world really hurt in case of pandemic. And the second important aspect I want to bring out is it's important to understand how this technology works. It's not so special or so innovative that no one else has seen it, but it's how it supported political decision making. Because most probably you know that if you go changing public transport network that is some 20-year-old and it's working, what happens? I was the person standing in front of public on the public meetings explaining the plans what city had. You can imagine that the crowd that turns up to such meetings, they are not very in understanding mood and very friendly mood. So I can imagine how difficult it is for decision makers to make this decision, to start with complicated process, which results are not always guaranteed, and to carry it out for 1.5 years. So it's always important to support this kind of political courage. And it's about everything we are talking about here, actually. It's the future of mobility. It's not that we don't know what to do to change mobility towards sustainability. It's very often difficult to gain support from decision makers and from wider public. And if you are prepared, if you have set up your systems that you can support your decisions, your plans, your systems with data, whatever kind. I'm not talking about the mobile data only, but all different sorts of nowadays big data, which is sometimes difficult to take into use, and they have their own concerns. The support with data to the future of mobility, I think this is one important aspect that should not be overlooked. That's basically it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marek. Great, excellent, and well in time. So the third contribution comes from Torben Quickert. Torben, you are from Bremen, but you are also involved in a European Interreg program. And the title of your presentation is about the implementation of automated road transport. The abbreviation is ART. And what are the impeding and promoting factors on a multi-level perspective for authorities? Torben, the floor is yours, please.
Hello, thank you, Manfred. I want to share with you some slides regarding to my topic. Now you see my.
No.
No? Yes?
That's fine.
Okay.
Absolutely fine.
Okay, hi. Again, my name is Torben Quickert. I'm a policy officer at the city of Bremen, and I'm also a EU project coordinator of the mentioned project ART Forum. It's standing for Automated Road Transport, and my abstract or my idea for the proposal for the ECOM was to do a challenging workshop regarding to the implementation of automated road transport and to elaborate the impending and promoting factors for authorities. But I just want to show you what ART Forum is standing for. I have to change the view. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay, yeah. The key facts about ART Forum. ART Forum is an Interreg project with 14 partners from 6 nations. It's a time period of 3 years, and we want to build capacity for authorities, regions, and cities regarding to the impacts and effects of automated road transport to the authorities. So there we are building a kind of core think tank where we involve NGOs, research partners, other European networks, and we want to involve the local and regional authorities as main target. It's important that in one case, the local stakeholders understand the potential and risk of impact of the technologies, and otherwise, the developers can understand the needs of the communities in which their technologies will be deployed. Because the technological development towards automated transport is very fast, and there are a lot of projects in the economy regarding to the technological development, but the development and the capacity of the communities and regions and cities are missing, and that's the aim and the overall objectives of the project of Art Forum. So due to our topic of this debate, our overall project objectives we have in this project, the future mobility in my case is the same, because we have to involve the society and we have to involve the communities. And so it's important that we raise awareness among all public stakeholders, and in another way that we can build, or that we can create policy recommendations that they can use to know what will happen if automated or autonomous vehicles are on the street, and so that not only the technical developers are changing the system and then said, okay, community, you have to build your streets and you have to use the traffic management, so on and so on, and that's too late. So we have to do this in co-creation, to do a kind of great living there. And automated roads transport can also develop and get better to build sustainable transport at all. So we can improve quality of life in this case because of road safety, for example, or reducing emissions. So what we are doing in Art Forum is exactly that, what is possible to, when we're talking about disruptive technologies, that the society knows what to do. So we have applications like pilots, for example, in Aalborg. Now, in the beginning of March, the first self-driving bus launched in Aalborg, but due to Corona, two weeks later, it had to be stopped, but we hope that he can relaunch in the next weeks. Another cases that we are doing is we are doing scenario developments, for example, or social and economic impacts regarding so the acceptance from the citizens. And for example, we are doing hackathons and so on, all the kind of co-creation that is important, that all the people know what automated or autonomous driving is standing for. And for a little approach, because I have an economic geographic background at my university, I was living before my time at Bremen, the city of Bremen. It's important to understand how difficult it is to implement automated road transport into the regime. For example, especially in Germany, where we have a high car dependency. So it's very important to change the human behavior. And this regime, you see in this graphic here, in the middle, that's the regime, for example, the automobile practices, travel behavior, and the traffic management in the automotive industry at all. So in Germany, I already mentioned it, it's very important, and it's a high factor on economy. And this region is affected by the landscape. And the landscape you see at the top is more about the high standing things that are changing not so fast. It's about urban density, individualization, climate change, and all the things, and that influence the regime. And now it's the chance to get into this regime with a niche. You see at the bottom, we're talking about sharing. We're talking about especially car sharing. We're talking about mobility as a service. And of course, we're talking about automated transport, or all together automated sharing transport. But now it's possible, this niche, that they can interrupt into the regime to build another regime, so that we can change the behaviors and implement it in the whole society and economic system. On the right side, you see the recombination of knowledge. If we're talking about technical innovations, then it's very important to involve the social innovations. It's, for example, car sharing or sharing mobility is a social innovation. So that the technical innovation you see in the middle of this knowledge base is synthetic. It's very engineer based and incremental. So they have a lot of knowledge before and are crafty, and but we have to recombine it with the symbolic knowledge base. For example, the society and the civil and so on, that we can use another co-creation and that we can combine this kind of knowledge base to recreate how implement automated road transport to the society and to the traffic system. But with the symbolic knowledge base, you can create new ideas and you can be very creative in this case. Yeah, that's the table I want to elaborate with my participants at the ECOM. So we have this multi-level approach. I was to build with all the participants. We are starting at the bottom. It's a micro level with the actor and the product. Now that's my try to fill out this table. You see, for example, the impeding factors. We have, for example, acceptance, human behavior, or limited openness for innovation. So that makes it difficult to implement new innovations of automated road transport to the people, society, or the actors at all. Promoting, for example, is communication, dissemination, like our project Art41 is doing, co-creation in civil participation, and, for example, applications and pilots where the people can test how it feels like to be in a self-driving bus or car at all. At the middle, at the meso level, it's about institutions and policies. We have to see this is regarding to the authorities. So I'm talking about regional institutions and policies, promoting factors, the policy measures that can be done, and of course partnerships and cooperation in form of governance structures, for example, and partnerships, and the whole system integration from the automated road transport into the traffic system. At the other way, institutional barriers, for example, Germany, we have this lobby about the automotive industry. So if you're talking about sharing and public transport, it might be difficult to implement through this institutional barrier. And at the macro, it is kind of the landscape I was talking about at the other graphic. So we have impending factors at all legislation, infrastructures, and the regimes in this case. And promoting factors can be the digitization, but there we have to build up 5G, and this will be a long process. And maybe the pandemic, or not the pandemic, I just pronounce it here, maybe to discuss it later. Okay, kind of close a short impression what we're doing. For example, in Bremen, we had a dialogue on automated driving. We have invited more than 30 stakeholders to talk about automated driving for the future, and especially in Bremen. And this was in cooperation with our partner from Art41, DLR, the German Aerospace Center. And this was part of the scenario development we are doing. And a little advertising on own behalf. Next week, on the 25th of June, we will have a webinar, The Potential of Automated Road Transport from a Cities and Citizen Perspective. Is organized by our partner Autodeal.net from Belgium. And yeah, I will share this link with the registration in the chat later. So it would be nice if I can see some of you there to the webinar next week. Okay, that was it from my side.
Thank you very much, Torben. And thanks to all the three of you. It's great to have seen and get all these presentations. And meanwhile, already first questions arrived from the audience, but also I will have some questions to you. So let's start immediately directly to Katerina. There was the question, are there future plans how to continue with Navigate? Are there other actions, investments, or services planned? And in particular, it's about, is there anything planned with other modes, in particular with cycling, or maybe a public bike cycling scheme?
Yes, we would like very much to do that. We will continue for the of the question. We will continue with Navigant. We cannot go back to all those thousands of titles and different titles with different prices, one for bus, but just this line, another for the ferry, just one line. This was a solution and in the way we travel in the metropolitan area. And I think that going back, we need to see the region as a region, an integrated system, and from now on you can just go better, improve with cycling, with other modes. We are now two very important things. One is the ticketing system, better ticketing system, and the information system of the all metropolitan area. That is what we are doing now. We have some support for that. We are now launching the tenders and all that, and we are also launching tender for the bus transport system for the all metropolitan area. So it just excludes the city of Lisbon, Cascais, and another city that has a bus system for itself. And we are now doing this, the biggest tender in Portugal, and probably one of the biggest in the old metropolitan, to have better transport. So we are working to improve. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Katerina. Well, let me ask directly into the same direction to you, Marek. As you pointed out excellently, your great investments in public transport, on the one hand in the new bus network, and on the other hand in this public bike scheme, or let's call it public cycling as well. So also this is part of public transport. And you even have stressed briefly the synergies, or was it a critical remark that you said, hey, the people moved from the bus to the bicycle? Was this more an advantage, or was this a loss in the revenues? So what's your opinion of the collaboration of these two modes inside of the big frame of public transport?
I think generally the impact was very positive. It's just me who is trying to estimate the impact. It's very difficult to separate now that how big the share of public transport would have been, or the change of the network without the introduction of bicycle sharing system. But that said, no, I don't want to say that because the bicycle sharing system, I think, or some other people have agreed also, this is the best mobility decision of this millennia in Tartu. So it has transformed the city, and it has also made possible that now we are talking about creating bicycle infrastructure. I mean, the proper bicycle road network into the city center, which is kind of missing now. But it's very difficult to push it through without public support. And creating bus network and creating this rental network actually has enabled to move towards good infrastructure. So they are all connected.
Thank you very much, Marek. Well, Torben, you introduced additionally to your entire new system and systemic thinking, you introduced the multi-level perspective with the three levels, as you explained, the micro, the meso, and the macro. Was this used only in Germany or also from your other European partners? and in the EU Interact project? And which additional benefits were you able to create by that?
Sorry, I don't understand the first part of the question.
The first part was this practice also in other European countries by your other EU Interact partners? And the second, which additional benefits were you able to create by that?
Okay, this multi-level perspective approach, I did not elaborate it out. It was just an approach for the ECOM at all. So that was the.
So it was marketing for ECOM.
Yes. I want to elaborate with all the participants of the workshop this table to fill it out what the people are thinking about impending and promoting factors.
Sorry when I'm a bit provoking, but exactly this is what we have to curve out and where we have to invest in is to improve our systemic thinking. And of course, there are many factors coming together, and therefore I like this idea very much. Well, now maybe to all the three of you, what is your strongest disruptive momentum in your project? And I see, first of all, before we will talk about the challenges and the risks, I see, first of all, the opportunities, the chances. Schumpeter, the very famous Austrian economist, was even talking about destruction, to create innovations by destructions. Now we are talking nowadays about disruption. So first of all, it has this positive momentum to create something new. And therefore the question to the three of you, what was your strongest disruptive momentum in your project? Torben, would you like to continue directly?
Yes. What I understand now, since I'm in this EU project, is that it's much better if we can do it together in inter-regional and all around Europe. So the effects and impacts of automated road transport are a kind of the same in every country. So it's better that we can talk about it together. And I think it's very important that we can the disruptive part I understand for mobilities and automotive restaurants is the human behavior. So that's for me very, very important.
Thank you, Torben. Christina, would you like to continue?
Katarina.
Yes. Katarina, sorry, excuse.
Yes.
Apologies.
Well, we are a new authority, a new transport authority, so having these competences was a challenge for us. And also one of the things that we try to do is to get knowledge first. So we did some mobility service, and that is also, we did some studies on the fare system. She's an expert on. And we did a lot of studies to get the way that we should go. What was the way that we should go? What should be the priorities in IML? And after the knowledge, the competences, I think we a will. Well, we need all to have a very big goal from the politicals. Also, because we are made of 18 municipalities, we are not 20, we are 18 heads, 18 thinking, different ways of thinking, and with different parties and all that. So we have to all go together to get a goal, to reach that goal, and to work together. And I think that one of the things, that there was a will, but there was a technical team, a very good technical team that made us go through these goals: the fare system, the public transport tender, and the ticketing, the information. We need a goal. We are a small team. We are in all of us. We have, I think we are what, 14 now? Yes, I think we are 14 now. So we are a very small team, as you can see, and we are doing a lot of things. So I think it's this team spirit, this will, these goals, and the work between all of us together. That's I think that is one of the things that made us going.
The unifying momentum with all the frictions in between, this is a great progress in your project, as I can see. Okay, Marek, to you, may I combine the question about your strongest disruptive momentum with another question from the audience, which is asking about how, which target groups are you considering the question about social innovation? Because also this is a momentum you yourself stressed with your focus on sustainable development already.
Okay, now I missed maybe the last 5 seconds from your question. Could you repeat the second part?
Yeah, the second question was, which groups are you targeting considering the social innovation in Tartu? Did you get it?
You answered yes.
When you're looking into the chat, you can see it directly.
Okay. The first question, what was disruptive? Just let me give you an example. The whole process of designing this public transport network took 1.5 years. This is from start of creating visions to including also public consultation and in Estonia, the capital city, Tallinn.
Stop, Marek, can you please repeat the last sentence? There were some connectivity problems.
So the process took 1.5 years, and the process also includes public consultation with target groups. And the result was successful. That's undeniable. But Tartu is the second largest city.
The second was, which target groups are you addressing, considering social innovation?
Okay, no. Can you hear me?
No, now
I'm back.
The question is again, which target groups are you addressing, considering social innovation?
Yes, we were especially concerning these people who are not giving digital feedback. So the elderly people who need the public transport to get around because they are not using bicycles either that much. And the other target group was actually school children who are majority of users of public transport. And feedback from them actually resulted 2 new lines that we did not propose initially based on data. So we were all smart, knowing all, designed the network, but the feedback we got was that we had missed many of important points. So always, however smart you consider yourself, that you know all from your data, always consult people who are actually going to use the public transport. From them, based on their feedback, or the social function.
Okay, thank you very much, Marek. Let's continue with a very short question to Torben from the audience. Very short, please. You pointed out that mobile data are better than the sales statistic, and using this data in public meeting to push or help politicians. And also, did you have already got experiences with automated vehicles in your project, or is this just a future scenario?
In my project, actually, I mentioned the pilot in Aalborg, which was launched in the beginning of March, but due to the coronavirus, stopped two weeks later. That's the kind of how we can involve the public, and how the University of Aalborg and the Aalborg Kommune are evaluating how this pilot will react to the system, the traffic system, and the people, and the civil and Groningen at the province of Bremen, a partner of us, there is a pilot at all, and so they are testing a digital driver license, for example, according to the pilot. Yeah. But in Bremen, for example, actually we don't have a pilot.
Okay, thank you very much. Now a question from Julia Cortesi about the shift maybe from car to public cycling, in particular the first two presentations of Katerina and Marek. But let's guide this into a more general question to all the three of you. Did you also were you able to control the model split during the entire period of your project? Or if no, are you intended to control this in the future? Because I guess this is a very, very good figure to measure further and future success. Katerina, would you like to?
Yes, I can start. What we control is the use of public transport with those graphs that I showed. Mm-hmm. So we know how many people used to use public transport in the last year, in 2018, 2019, and now. Also, we did a survey on mobility for the metropolitan area of Lisbon, together with the metropolitan area of Porto. Also, we did a survey on that in 2017, in the December, something like this, November, December, in the end of the year. And that survey we had a figure from the people, the way that people moved in the metropolitan region. We didn't have, the last survey was about 20 years before. We had plans this year to make some update and made some special inquiries to see how was the navigant going, the system, and how did people change besides the information we had from validations. But with all this pandemic, we just freeze this new what we are going to do and how it goes until the end of the year, and maybe in the end of the year we do some new inquiry on that.
Thank you very much, Katerina. Okay, gentlemen, who of you would like to continue? Marek?
Yes, thank you. In case of Tartu, we don't have actually the data on how modal share has changed over the past year. If it was up to me, I would definitely do everything to get this monitoring working. I have discussed with the city about it, and initially I'm going to analyze. I just got the data from the bicycling system.
We lost you. Sorry, we lost you.
Yeah.
Can you please continue with the aspect of the shift from the car to the bicycle, maybe?
System for all modes.
We lost your last two sentences, Marek.
So we have basically data about cycling, we have data about public transport use, but Tartu has yet to set up system to monitoring other modes, saying traffic and walking and other cycling besides rental system. So I encourage them very much to do so to get the complete picture.
Yes, thank you very much, Marek. And please, Torben.
Yeah, according to the model split, we don't figure it out yet how automated road transport can change this here in Bremen, for example. Yeah, that's we have to look for the future. But what I can say is that we have in Bremen regarding to the modal split and the means of transport, a high use of bike and pedestrians. So 50% around are all our races are done in Bremen with pedestrians and bicycles a day. So that could be a good reason regarding to resilience now for the pandemic, that Bremen might be resilient because 50% are by bike or pedestrians in Bremen.
Okay, thank you very much, Torben. For continuing now with the perspective to the future of mobility, I all like to invite you now to an introduction in systemic thinking. And this is, okay, here we got it. Okay, so can you see this graph?
Yes.
Fine. But its machine is still working. Good. Hello, are you still there?
Yeah.
Can you? Okay, fine. But the presentation mode does not work properly. So let me leave again the presentation mode. And it's a bit stupid now. I'll try again. It was well prepared at the beginning, but now we lost it. Sorry for that. This inconvenience. That's the wrong one. Sorry for that.
It's interesting too.
It's very interesting, of course. I can imagine. It's a pity. Okay, nevertheless, let me ask in between a question to.
Click on the presentation. I
yeah.
think we are seeing your screen. So if you click on the presentation, we'll see the presentation.
Yep, I see, but it's the wrong one. What you can see, because the presentation mode skipped all out. Anyhow.
Okay.
Let me bridge with a short question to Katharina, a question from Ingrid Briesner. Ingrid was asking, how did you manage to get all the public authorities together and pave the way to their integrated and mutual interactions? Please, Katharina.
It was difficult negotiations. We had not only public authorities, but also private companies, private operators. So we had to put all of them together. We had to many months for that, and to get the ticketing system, for example, to work. It was difficult, but I think that has to do with we all the time we had the support from the government also. The companies are public and state companies. We also work with the cities that are part of IML, like this, one of the main bus companies. So it was also, they worked with us all the time. And I think there was this conjugation of technical and political support. We all worked together because something had to be done. This thing with the fare system in the metropolitan area of Lisbon is like an old goal that was never reached, was never done, something that was to be done and that was urgent for many years. So I think we all put together, and I say different parties, different technical areas, different enterprises, and we've reached the goal. It was difficult, but it was possible. Okay, now we're seeing your presentation, Manfred.
Thank you very much. Great. Well, I'm now not using the presentation mode because this was exactly the reason why the entire system stepped out. But now I can also see in my screen that our little pictures are in the middle of the presentation, which is not that nice, of course. But maybe I can make it in this way. Okay, it will work. Great. Fine. What you can see here is a systemic approach, and it's called the fusion mobility approach. And in particular, we build up this to address sustainable mobilities in the future. What you can see here are 6 building blocks around. And when we are talking, for example, about connected mobility, then you can see if it works all only here and not taking in the 5 other aspects. Of course, we will maybe have an optimization of cars or something like that. So it's important that these 6 building blocks will interact intensively and take it into account all the time. Now, the presentations we have seen, we can analyze with this systemic approach. For example, the first one, your one, Katerina, and with the strong focus on the public and on public mobility, on public transport, but taking all the SUMP criteria in, mentioning the effects of the COVID pandemic, and in particular, here you can see that in this graph now is missing the little second bullet about the connected mobility, as you have the ticketing and information system already in. So the second presentation, Marek, your one, has those 2 strong focal points on public transport with the new bike lines and also the public bike schemes and your data approach. Please allow me to take the occasion now. We have the recommendation of EU Stat to talk maybe not about big data, but if possible about new data, because it's not about the quantity only, but it's about that those incredible big amounts of data are being newly created, and it's quite important to understand how they will be collected, how they will be interpreted, how we can achieve with more transparency in data. And to be aware of this I think that the term promoted by EU Stat to talk about new data might be even better. Okay, and of course you were talking about the mobile positioning and data, which is absolutely an important approach, an important tool. And well, by COVID-19, this was now coming to much more into the focus, and many people are now able to understand much better. And the third presentation, your presentation, Torben, is this one with your art project here with these 2 strong building blocks, but addressing the public authorities on the other side. And you even brought in those multi-level perspective with the micro, the meso and the macro. I brought it into the main directions you were using, but of course I know to make it more concrete, we should make 3 layers, 3 levels of the entire system to build it up from bottom up, from the macro up to the from the micro up to the macro. But nevertheless, what's interesting now for our session is when we are putting these 3 short evaluations together in one graph, then you will see this. Then you can really see that the entire field of a mobility system is quite well covered, but that those 2 building blocks, the active mobility one, is a little bit touched, and also the sustainable factors one, the social, environment, economic factor, is not as strong as those who are technically related, which is first of all normal, because we are talking about new techniques and the disruptive momentum of the techniques. But on the other hand, this graph also shows us that we have to really be aware of to bring the human approach, the human factors in. And so I would like to invite you three, very short, not too long, to comment this approach and maybe which perspectives you can take out of this for the further progress you are intended to go to.
You want me to start?
Okay.
Yeah? Do I start? Okay. So this is a very interesting approach that gives us a connected vision of how we work every day, because when we work with goals and not thinking of the whole system. So this is a very interesting approach. I think this gives us a vision also of the way that we should go, although in the case of the metropolitan area, for example, the public space, that is not our competence, so it has to be worked in the cities. Also, the active mobility, we can do something in the metropolitan connections, but we cannot work, we metropolitan area, you cannot work the active mobility.
But this is very, very interesting that you are explaining your limited reach due to the separation of the different resources and the responsibilities. Yes, thank you for that. This is something we have to overcome, in my opinion. Excellent, thank you. Torben,
we work with the cities. We work with the cities, for example, for the active mobility, on the social factors, environmental factors, economic factors. We did not work that in this project, or we did work a little with the fare system for the older, for the children, for the families. But in metropolitan area, we are working that with, we have a plan for the, let me just, for environmental changes. So we are working that on other projects, but it's a very interesting vision, this one.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Katharina. Torben, please.
Yeah, many thanks to this graphic mentioned, but that is showing me what it's all about. So the public and shared mobility according to automated or autonomous transport. So that shows me again that that the integrated way, the system integration of all participants, like pedestrians, cycles, have to be involved into the development of the art. And you can see that in my opinion, the automated transport implementation is only possible if we're doing a shared mobility. So sharing is a pre-step to use automated transport. We have no change in the mobility or in the regime and paradigm if everyone remain their own car and use it, maybe automated, high automated or autonomous, but we have no reduce of traffic. And sharing is one case that is important, and the other thing is public, but we can create more public space, because when we have automated transport, regarding to platooning, for example, we have more space because the traffic or the street at all is more narrow, and so we can recreate more space, more public space.
This is the great idea behind more public space, but only if we will be systemically aware of. Otherwise, we can be sure it will not happen. Yeah. So thank you very much for putting your finger into this this hotspot. Thanks a lot. Marek, please.
Thank you for this graph. I mean, this represents everything that has been missing for the last maybe 50 or 100 years in urban planning. To a large extent, it has been missing. As you know, most of cities have some kind of transport department and city planning department. They shouldn't be separated. But and for that reason, I have had some hard times to explain to some people who are organizing public transport that public transport is actually walking. You cannot give how to say, priority to public transport over walking, because these are the same people.
Exactly.
And walking and all active mobilities are very much dependent on public space quality.
Absolutely.
So all these factors that you have in circle actually end up in quality of life as a one factor, and maybe competitiveness of a city, how really competitive it is. So thank you for this graph. I think if you could promote it, that it really finds its way to every city, you have changed the world.
Thank you very much to all the three of you for your interpretation, your discovering what you did overall. So let me leave again my. Okay, now we are back. Let me open now, based on this idea, on this systemic thinking. Let me now open a final round with the three of you, asking you now about what are your personal perspectives and the perspectives for your project, of course, for the future of mobility. In particular, not only about the narrowed frame of your project, but now the wider frame of sustainable mobility development. What are your desires of a new normal? I think we have 3 minutes for each of you, for everybody. Who would like to start?
I may as well start.
Please.
My typical way of moving around in cities is bicycles. That's my daily transportation mode. I live actually in Tallinn. That's 200 kilometers from Tartu. And I'm going to take my bike now to train station after this meeting, 7 kilometers. I'm going to take train for perfect working time in train for 2 hours. And then I'm going to be in Tartu, which is a lot more bicycle friendly than Tallinn is currently. What I'm doing for Tartu now also is designing a bicycle road network. We are making all kind of GIS analysis and putting all the good, solutions from all over the world, how to design a good bicycle infrastructure. And I hope that as soon as the center of Tartu is covered by good infrastructure, it's going to be explosion, because the city, in 5 kilometers, you can reach every part of city from the center. It's very nice, compact city still. Some suburbs, but not very, very, very large. And then it's going to have impact on people's minds, because soon they are not talking about people on bikes and people walking as them, because soon they are part of this. And it makes possible the future developments. So few steps back, I can see how these steps have contributed for the future. It makes the future possible. It's not happening in Tallinn. We have tried hard. You know how hard it is to promote cycling. It isn't very easy. It has taken us 10 years and almost nowhere. But in Tartu, things are working. And I'm really happy to also bring back some knowledge from here to introduce in Tartu and to spread the success that they have had. So
I think we all can feel that there's a lot of yeast in your DAO, so you can expand and go forward. Maybe to the others too now to continue. It was great to see how Marek was was drafting his wish for the future from the people's perspective, from the not only users' perspectives, but overall people's perspective. Maybe you can now combine this also with the technologies we need for that. Torben, Katarina, who would like to continue?
Yeah, I can continue. You're talking about the techniques we can use to involve the society. right?
Please, yes.
Yeah.
Combined with the people's perspective.
Yeah. When we're talking about sustainable mobility and development for the future, I think it's very important to get an holistic approach so that we can involve all the traffic, all the integration and I already mentioned it, the society. And for our project, for example, Art for Foreign, we are using these pilots and we're using modern method or formats, how to involve them, like scenario development or hackathons, for example. And it's very important that we do it on this level, how the people, how the citizens can understand what automated road transport will change their life, and maybe will involve better qualities for the living in the cities and the regions. And so this changing human behavior is very important, so that the people, maybe it's I know it's a good example, but many years, decades ago, smoking was usual, and now it's getting more taboo, and maybe we can fix it, that the car dependency, having a car, is something like smoking in the future. It's a taboo in the society, and they have to use the bicycles, and they will go buy food, and they can use the shared automated or autonomous vehicles in the future, reduce emissions and reduce traffic and so on. And maybe this could be a good step to implement society, to implement automated road transport and sustainable mobility at all.
Thank you very much, Torben. Now, Katerina, please.
Well, I think in this I have to, as we work a lot with the public transport, this is a crucial moment for the public transport in the whole world, because of this new pandemic. And I think this new, what we are living now and what we lived in the last month, I think it changed the way that we see and how we behave. So this thing with health or economy, I think it made us think more about health and more sustainable modes. Also, I see more people cycling, more people walking, more people running. But I think also it is a challenge for public transport, because it is being a little bit associated with some problems with the pandemic. So it is a new challenge we have to go through, especially in the metropolitan areas, because we cannot live without public transport. We can use the bicycle and the walking, we can use them together, but we need public transport. I think we need to rethink that. We need to have more integrated policies with all these modes. I hope we don't go for car again, especially in Portugal, where we use a lot of car. And one of the things that I think it's important is that when we think of these policies, we think it for all the social bases. So for young, for old, for people who work, for people who go outside and want to just to leisure. And I think that's an important thing. Another important thing on the future of mobility is that I think the public authorities, and well, I'm speaking from Portugal, but I think it's the same. I've been talking with other metropolitan areas in the last weeks, and the paper and the role of public authorities is fundamental in this in this situation and for the future. And I think now, it was not 20 years ago, maybe in the northern countries, not in the southern countries. I think now the authorities, the city halls, the government, they want a more sustainable mobility, more public transport, more people to share the public space, and more quality of life, as my colleague said. And I think we have something to go through, but I think we'll do it together. I think we'll do it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Katerina. I have one short minute again for each of you in the tension of the COVID pandemic. On the one hand, the fast increase of active modes, particularly cycling, where it was allowed, and on the other hand, the increasing higher acceptance of technology use, in particular apps as mobile positioning systems for data collection. What are your lessons learned from COVID-19? Just in one or two sentences only.
I may start.
Please, Mari.
I hope the societies have learned something from it, because the examples are showing what preparedness can do and what these sudden changes can provide you. The worst that can happen is that we learn nothing from it. But I think we have so many lessons that if someone is willing to learn, the data is all there, the good examples are all there, technical examples, leadership examples. So COVID has created possibilities.
Thank you very much, Mari. Okay, Torben, please.
Yeah, regarding to the possibilities, Marek was mentioned, if we're talking about automated road transport, maybe it could be increasing it, because if you're talking about high automated shuttles with level 4 or 5, they don't need a driver anymore. So the infection is not possible if there will be a driver. And on the other hand, for me, it's good that we have more use in bicycles, but on the other hand, it will be a lot of work to get the people back to the public transport, because of Corona, they don't use it. There is a less use of public transport, and I hope this human behavior can change with that too.
Thank you, Torben. Katerina, please.
That's, I think my colleague said almost everything, but I think what is important now is to rebuild the trust we have in public transport, to make it safe to travel. I went to work yesterday and I used the train and it was empty completely. And it's not common. It's not common.
Yes.
And another thing is that we need to think, as we've been working in the last years about new ways of mobility, to reshape the mobility as we see the mobility with public transport, active mode, cycling, with apps for information, so I can leave my house and I can make the options, the better option, for my mobility. And I think we need to keep our goals and have hope on the future. I think that's the main thing. So we keep on working for this new future.
That's a great remark for all the panelists. Thank you very much, Katerina. So it's my pleasure really to conclude with a wrap-up sentence saying, yes, in this session now and already on before about mobility as a system and others we have seen, there is an increasing possibility, and there are increasing tools and options really to enable transport development, to look for new mobility and better mobility solutions for the future. But at the same time, we have seen it's a real challenge to keep the human approach high and to bring in all the people needs. But as long as all those of you who are involved in these procedures, and if we are all together able to improve our systemic thinking, then I see a great perspective for the future. about what I told you about fusion mobility. I delivered already to the ECOM committee a paper. So I guess in some few days, you all from the audience are able to see this in a bit broader way. Thank you very much for participating, for the panelists, for the speakers, also for the audience. Let me invite you for this very afternoon for the next session, which will be about how to nudge people into new mobility thinking and behavior. This is exactly what we try to do now, and it's bridging directly to this very afternoon. In about a fortnight, that means at the 30th of June, we will have the final plenary with all the session representatives in with a wrap up and drafting together the future of mobility and the design of the ECOM 2021 next year. Thanks a lot to all of you. Have a nice day. Thank you very much.